Kevin.
Hey, Terry.
Hey, how you doing? How's that arm? How's the shoulder, I mean?
What's that?
How's the shoulder?
Oh, it's good until I try to reach too far. Then it speaks to me.
For good reason.
Yeah,
Telling you don't reach that far.
yeah, it keeps me in check.
Hey, let me send you a quick email. Of course, I was doing this.
I was going to ask if you had sent any of the follow-on material.
Yeah, let me drop it in. Get it back up here. Okay.
Ouch.
Oops. Which one did I do? Oh, shoot. One. Huh. Got to do a little file compression here.
Are you able to PDF it once it's squished?
Actually, what I did was I can, because I have a lot of pictures, I compress pictures. And that works, seems to work pretty good.
Is that within PowerPoint or a different application?
A PowerPoint. Yeah, I do a save as, and then there's a feature to reduce. Okay, I just did this. Where is it? I hope this is one. Yeah. Okay, that is the one. Okay, right. Yep.
You have the con, Carl?
I do? Okay.
Oh, you know. Oh, I do. Good. Okay, I was just looking to make sure I didn't give away the stop and start record button.
My understanding is Canood won't be here tonight.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
He was optional and probably not.
We gave him the night off.
Yeah, he's in San Diego, as far as I know.
Yeah, that's what he told me earlier this week. Down in San Diego.
So we need either Mr. Fuller or Mr. Gordon to show up, or we don't have a quorum. I haven't heard from Gordon that he can't make it, so I'm assuming he will make it.
Okay.
Has the election been certified yet, Burl?
No, that happens December 3rd. So I'm not gonna say a lot about it unless a question comes up about it until the January meeting. Then we'll wrap up the whole thing.
I said, if it's been certified, you can swear me in right now. We have a quorum. So.
Yeah, but we're not there yet. Don't be too anxious. You know, because several things will happen in January. First, we all resign as our currently what we're doing, and we have to rebuild who's going to do what. You know, president, secretary, all that stuff, and then we'll just after we swear you and Terry in again, and then go from there. You know, see what we want to do.
I was just joking. I wanted you to have your quorum.
Well, I do too, because we it's nice to get some of this stuff done. We'll see. Let's see, he's still got 6 minutes, so I'm not gonna press the button yet.
I nominate Burl at that time to be president.
Yeah, don't jump the gun. Jeff's bigger than me, he can handle it. He's got strong shoulders.
Yeah, but I'm not as politically correct as you are.
Well, maybe it's time for a change. That's why the rules are what they are. So do that. But yeah, that's my thought is we're going to skip next month's per standard, and then January we'll swear the new members in. We can review the specifics on the election and see what else comes up between now and then that we got to deal with. There's several things potentially will come up by that time. So that's my thinking. So we can all do something else for a while. And what I'm thinking I might do, Jeff, is distribute. I've rewritten most of the policies, board policies and stuff, and they're much better reading than they ever were. So that might be useful stuff to review sometime between now and then. It talks about agendas and all this other stuff that we're supposed to do in some process.
I was at the board meeting that you had, the committee meeting a few weeks back where you went through the rewrite process with them and stuff. Is very, very
yeah.
interesting.
Well, and sorry about the very late getting the mowing stuff.
Okay. My only thought is you don't need to be as thorough as you usually are because you're just talking to me and Glenn basically. So
I'll make it quick. But if you
well,
go,
then you don't have to make it
yeah,
quick.
skip over.
But I
I
don't
don't
think-
think we go on the record.
Yeah, it's good to have it ready, but
If I had more time, I could make it less.
that's okay. I just sent Glenn an FYI on the fact that we're having a meeting. Email wise. I don't know if he has a phone or not set up. Let me see.
I'm getting help from my buddy for me. Sir Barkalot.
Such a good night to have a meeting. We don't have a lot of public. We could get stuff done.
Yeah.
Assign volunteer jobs.
So I saw your email to CARES. Is that the actual requisition form, or is that just the in between form, that AMR or whatever it is?
The requisition forms we sent in after that Dave Cushing guy
Correct. Yeah.
stuck his head up above the shrub line. The form that you saw today is the one that we sent in all the way back in April, where we redlined everything.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
is them finally taking all the red line, creating a clean new form for us.
Okay.
And that came in at 4 o'clock this afternoon, and I just turned it right around and sent it.
Absolutely, yeah. So in theory, they could fund whenever. Here comes Glenn, so we're good to go. Yeah, that would be great to get that log jam broken.
No, we need it. We're so close to finishing the big job, so we'll use a little bit of it.
Okay.
Hey, Glenn.
Hey, Glenn, hi. All right, well, with Glenn's arrival, we have a quorum. Knud won't be with us tonight. So I'm thinking at 7 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order, and Burl is here.
Bolin is here.
Okay. Glenn is here. Okay, we'll launch. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. You should be seeing the agenda. So we've got the adopt minutes from October 26, committee reports, public forum, old business is obstruction mitigation, CARES Act, and storage project update. New business is a resolution to approve the airport rules and regs we've been working on. And we need some serious discussion on budget issues, so we'll go in detail on those. Basically, we've need tree trimming and mower situations. I have a proposal to take a break. We typically don't have a meeting in December, so we have to agree to that. And then I've got the list of proposed projects for the capital improvement program to enter into Caltrans. So that's basically the agenda. If there's any questions or errors or comments, we can fix that. Otherwise, we can adopt it for the agenda for tonight.
I don't have any comment. Looks good.
All right. So I would second that, and I guess say yes on the agenda.
And oh, yes, yeah. Glenn, did I hear a yes from you on for the agenda?
Yeah, you're being pretty quiet, Glenn. I can't hear you. So,
Glenn,
okay.
your voice is very distorted. You sound like a cat trying to talk. Yeah.
Mhm.
I thought it was kids there.
Sounds like he's got to re-up, so we'll have to wait.
He just dropped off, yeah.
While he's doing that, I'll look for the minutes. He's coming back in now. We'll see if he can.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
That's good. we need to score the vote on the minutes from the October 21st. We didn't do that. So those need to be added to the minutes. I assume it's the same as okay. Committee reports. If I'm not going to necessarily reread these. If you guys have any comments, speak up as I go through them. Um, So we basically had some stuff that we're going to repeat tonight that we tabled at that time, and things evolve as we go along. So that's the main difference from what we've seen. And we adjourned at 9:11 after a lot of discussions. Good meeting. So any comments on the minutes at this point? Okay. So I would, I guess, put a motion to adopt the minutes from the October 26th. The only thing I changed was I added the votes for the second minutes that were voted on at that time.
You muted, Terry.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, I checked my notes. The October or the October 21st meeting minutes were adopted.
Yep, okay.
No comments or changes.
All right, so I can say we can adopt, I'll say we adopt the minutes.
Second?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
we got the three. All right. So now we get to move on to number 5, which is, I don't know, I assume you all know, but Ron Hooper, who is Guy Hooper's son, was killed in an airplane accident about 10 days or 2 weeks ago. And I think it's appropriate for us to honor him a bit with just a minute of silence. I don't know any other information on memorials or any of that sort of thing. It's up to the family, and I have not heard anything unless somebody else has about that. Ron was 30 years old. He was working his way up through the Air Force flight program, and he was building some hours, and the indications are he had an engine problem, and then in trying to get it down, he went through some trees and ended up being fatally injured in the accident. He actually passed in the hospital. They were able to pull him out of there and fly him to the hospital, but he didn't survive his injury. So I think we should have a minute of silence in remembrance of Ron. I don't have a clock I can propose. I'll just announce when a minute's up. So that's about a minute. I guess if anybody wants, they could try to send their condolences and make contact with Guy and Becky Hooper. I saw him briefly and he wasn't really up to talking or doing much about it. Again, I have not heard about services or any of that, but if we hear something, we will try to let people know if it's the family's choice to let people know. So unless there's comments or questions, I'll move on from there. Okay, committee reports, finance. We're going to spend some time on the annual budget issue and what modifications are going to make. I think I can report that a couple of things are higher than expected on our budget that we approved, and I'll bring those up when we get to that part of discussion on the budget. Otherwise, there's no action. The assessment district is current and there's no activity there except for a few cents interest we accumulated in the CDs. Everything else is pretty much tracking normal as far as finance goes. If anybody has any specific questions, I can dig around in the reports that I have and bring them up if necessary. But at this point in the game, we're pretty much tracking our predictions with a couple of exceptions, which we'll talk about later when we start talking about how to fund some things that we need to fund.
Okay.
Okay, airport manager report.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Department of Redundancy Department. Again, the report as a PDF is available on the website. One of the things that I didn't get into the report, and I don't know that it's in the agenda, I just wanted to mention the successful Halloween trick-or-treat drive-through. We did receive a letter from Jill Ritzman in the CSD with a heartfelt thank you for just supporting the community and the effort that went into that. So it was a good thing for the district to do. It was appreciated. In the report, I'll just highlight a few things here so we can get back to the real business. But we went through the hangar and tie down wait list, and I was kind of surprised. We had a pretty prompt 80% responses for yes, please keep me on the list. And some of these names go back quite a few years. And then we have over 20 names that are on the list right now. That might want somebody to ask whether or not we're doing good economics in terms of what our lease rates are. And in conversations with some of the folks that dropped by the office here during the month, it still indicates to me that a lot of folks don't understand the nuances of living in a residential through the fence airport. And I'm going to try to put together several paragraphs that outline that, and maybe Burl, I can bounce that off of you as we get it ready for public consumption.
Okay.
But for those of you that are on the list, for the names that I can see, it might be just worth a few sentences of background that in a typical county or city-owned airport where the county's really in charge of its own lease rates, they're not encumbered by the residential through the fence grant assurances that airports like ours will be. And the cost basis for operating the airport is what controls. And if you're going to go after project level grant money, which is the only way that Cameron Park can get anything sizable done, there has to be evidence that the taxpayer side of the airport, the grant money, is not paying for the lifestyle side in the resident area, the neighborhood. So when you jack up the rates on the airport side, you dig a larger gap on the inequity of the residential side. And that's one of the checklists when we put in our applications for sizable funding, resurfacing a runway, the tie downs were regraded, that sort of thing, the sizable projects, they look at that and say, no, it doesn't pass muster. So that's something to have in mind when we look at what can we charge over here. Even though we have a fairly lengthy hanger list, that's pretty much everywhere in the state of California. Our current rates, depending on which hanger you're looking at and what the amenities are that come with a specific hanger, are pretty close to market rates. We could do a couple of pennies per square foot here and there, but when you weigh the difference of revenue versus the gap in our budget, we can check the box for having adjusted the rents, but I don't think it's going to put much of a dent in our bigger issues. So that's, you know, something that the board and others, you know, as the new year comes on, we can explore a little bit more. There are ways to optimize it, but they'll take some work. On the air, one more important thing: the accordion doors on the hangars 1 through 4 here, the main building. Their years or months are numbered. We're going to have to start thinking about something to do with those as well. Burl and I touched on that earlier today, but that'll be another sizable expense. Whether we can get grant money for it or not will you know, really dictate which path we go down. Fuel in October, probably the best that I've seen in quite a long time. We sold over 5,000 gallons of fuel. The margin for the airport is quite good, while we still are able to stay competitive with my cohort of airports within about 50 miles. So, you know, that was almost a 70% increase over what we sold a year ago in October. November, we're down a little bit, but again, it looks like, you know, sales for the year are doing quite well. With all of the upheaval, retail prices are pretty much stable, and they have been for probably about 12 weeks now. So that's it's good to see that, you know, there isn't just a bunch of up and down in the wholesale price. Let's see, just a couple other things worth mentioning. We did get a residential burn permit filed. And I'm going to go over to Station 88 to see if we can get the larger scale one, similar to what we did last year, that lets us have a slightly larger burn pile than the 4x4 for residentials. So we'll want to get started on that pretty soon. The new battalion chief might give us a little bit more latitude when we can burn. For Cameron Park, usually you get 2 weeks in the fall, 2 weeks in the spring, and that's it. With this other permit we had last year, we burned for like 3 months straight. So we're kind of in that position again. So if anybody wants to come out and feed their pyro needs, come and see me. We'll check you out.
Is that, Kevin, just to be clear, you're looking for folks to help to manage the burns, I think, like you did?
Yeah, we just, given where the grass is at, we've had a couple of rains, but it's still pretty dry and there's a lot of fuel there. So just having a couple of guys standing around, or gals with a shovel to monitor it.
So camp chairs and shovels would work. Yeah.
Exactly, yes. I did file the formal 7460 form with the FAA to see if we can't get our 4 tie downs that are right here by the fuel island back. As you recall, we did a viability request with the FAA, and the fellow came back with he didn't really see a problem with it, which I sent off to our Caltrans inspector, and he said, yeah, that's great, file a formal one and we'll see how it goes. So in it went, and we'll hope for some favorable treatment there. The idea would be the flight school with its light sport aircraft could put them out front here. Their tails are only maybe 7 feet tall, so it's not quite as egregious as some of the other planes.
Do you think the lighting issue, I think you talked before at a prior board meeting, was resolved? We don't think the lights existing are adequate?
You know, it's really subjective, Terry. I went out and I took a picture of the airplanes. You can see it either as a backlit silhouette due to the floodlights, or depending on out towards Chuck Wall's ramp, they're illuminated. So I guess we just got to wait and see how much they'll tolerate. So I think that's about it for me, Burl. Everything else is business as usual. Some other things going on, but they're in the report.
We'll cover some stuff later too. The procurement and contracts, we're currently under contract for, I know about one tree cutting contract. I don't know about any others yet. It's under $3,000 and it's part of the mitigation issue. And that contract basically puts us at budget. But I don't think we have any other service contracts going, and we haven't got anything pending in procurement or other than routine repair and maintenance stuff. Volunteer service, roughly 155 hours so far in November, gives you an idea that it puts a baseline that we're accumulating. We'll put a part of this will be in an annual report to show how many hours it actually takes to run an airport the way we're trying to run it. So that's roughly, that includes board member time and meeting prep. It includes a lot of tree cutting, brush cutting, hauling by a few dedicated volunteers, and just general running around above and beyond normal time. So gives you an idea. Okay, public forum, public comment. We got a few visitors. Now's the time to talk to us. Anybody has anything to say? Okay. Old business. So obstruction mitigation efforts. We have had great success there so far as priority areas identified in the last meeting. Since this was written, Kevin's obtained verbal permission from BLM to go up the hill and cut those trees. He's working with CAL FIRE, so we anticipate that to be a no or low cost exercise for us. The contracts have been awarded for cutting the redwoods on Boeing that need to be cut. And I think you're in the process of working on contracts and have permission for the residential trees also on the south side. And the north side is essentially finished as far as what I understand for obstruction mitigation. So
One last redwood, December 2nd. We have one last redwood to go.
But it's in the works, so to speak. Yeah.
In the crosshairs, yes.
So I think once we get some dates established on BLM, we're going to update Caltrans and get the juices flowing for a re-inspection. That's our intention.
So just to be clear, then all the trees are identified in the last Caltrans inspection. All of them are on the path, and if they haven't been cut already, are about to be cut.
Correct. They're either we have permission, we're under contract, or they've been cut.
Excellent.
Great job by everybody involved, and special kudos to people like Jeff Thornhill, who personally with the resident cut a whole bunch of stuff down. He loves his chainsaw. So we think we're on a path for a re-up and let him know and try to get him back here for an inspection. We have no idea how long that's going to take, but we kind of want to have it under contract and or done before we get him too involved.
When do we think we'll have the trees cut or everything done? Rough schedule?
I'd say middle of January-ish. Depends a lot on if we can get CAL FIRE and that. We've just gotten the verbal permission. We need a letter, and then we need their response back to us. we've talked to them about it, so it's not a surprise to them. The redwoods on Boeing are going to get cut Saturday, this coming.
Excellent.
And that other redwood is December, so first part of December. So I think optimistically, mid-late January, we should have everything cut, assuming we don't get held up by something at this point. So once we have kind of a firmer date, the thought is to go ahead and alert him that we're there, we've got things in contract, so you start thinking about your next visit.
And Kevin, for the BLM land, do you anticipate a need for some additional help?
Yes, I think that will be helpful. They'll bring a crew that, you know, will be sawing, bucking, but I think getting the slash off of the area where the protected plants are, and if we're able down the hill to kind of where they're doing the fuel break already, will be the most efficient. The way I've expressed it to them is that job number one is to cut the trees down. We'll deal with disposal later, and they're okay with that. So their preference actually for a lot of it is to burn, but they acknowledge that burning the stem wood is challenging. So helpers up there to bring the slash down, I think would be a good thing. But I'll get that confirmed when we're ready to go.
Okay.
And actually, CAL FIRE crews can do a lot of that. They don't have vehicles, but if it's a matter of cutting stuff up and dragging it, that's in their bailiwick to do that sort of thing too. So we'll have to kind of see how much they can do. But I think the more the merrier as far as keeping an eye on things and showing a good show of keeping everybody where they're supposed to be up there would be good.
Yeah, my desire is that they concentrate on felling the trees so that they don't use a bunch of time bucking into 2-foot lengths, and then at the end of the day, there's still trees standing. I want them all flat on the ground, and we'll deal with the cleanup.
We can.
Yeah, because once they're on the ground, then Caltrans is happy. So that's what we got to work with. Yeah,
Bingo.
sounds good. Sounds good.
Excellent work.
So that's where we're at on obstruction mitigation. It's looking very positive because the BLM was the big schedule unknown on this one, and looks like courtesy of Kevin's work, we're getting a handle on that. So I think we're going to converge here pretty soon. So hopefully we can get this done. Okay, CARES Act. We actually have some progress to report on CARES Act that just happened this afternoon. Basically, Kevin primarily, again, is in the middle of this. We have repeatedly pleaded to FAA to tell us what they need, get something done, yada, yada, yada. One of McCloskey's staff contacted him about how we're doing with stimulus funds, and he got the full story. And since his involvement, I believe paperwork finally hit today and is getting done. So it's amazing when a little help comes our way that things get done. It's been 7 months trying to get these people to do what they're supposed to do. So I think we finally see a little bit of glimmer of hope that this is going to happen. Kevin and I have been discussing weekly about what to do, and my concern is that some of the care stuff times out the end of December. So if this was still being screwed around with, we may just lose this money, which for no good reason, no fault of our own. So I think that's outstanding news, and we'll keep on it and try to get this here. The thing about CARES Act is it's very critical to putting us in better stead this year in budget, and it actually saves us next year because we can't cover the budget next year for the other expenses that we've deferred. So this will get us through next year, even though it'll be very tight. So outstanding news. Okay, the other good news is our storage project friends. Thanks to those that contributed and sent things into the public meeting response. Apparently that did have a positive effect, and they have now dropped the requirement of having a gate between the airport and us for any reason. And they're gonna go back with a set of plans with no gate, and it's up to between them and fire what they gotta do about it. But at least we've made our point of, they have no access to us. They'll have to put a good fence all the way around this property, which is what we were after. So that issue is finally resolved in our favor. They had previously adjusted the heights to meet FAA requirements, so that's done. The whole principle of the thing, there's still another zoning meeting December 16th, so I encourage people to find out what to do there. I don't have the details on who to contact in that, but it may be another opportunity to complain about it in general and residential input, et cetera, et cetera. If we see something, we will send it out so people know what to do or who to contact as a reminder. But the public inputs had an effect, and the letter from the board had an effect, so we did get some progress to our favor on that project. So, but as far as I know, it's still moving forward. All right. New business. We've got to review again the airport rules and regulations document. Let me find it and get it up for you to look at. Here. So you should be seeing the table of contents for this thing. We had previously went through this kind of quickly. There were a couple of issues brought up, and we've attempted to address those and some clarifications. So I'll go fairly quickly through it. If you want me to stop and you want to look at anything, let me know. But this is the last major document that I wrote over COVID period. And this is an important one because it puts in place some things that we don't currently have to regulate basically what's going on in the airport as far as non-aircraft traffic. And it also deals with putting the various snippets of information that were scattered all over the documents into one place as far as recommended aircraft operations. So I think it's a useful, needed document. We don't currently have anything equivalent to this in place. So the intent is not to necessarily stipulate rules, but to get them all in one place so they're easy reference. The changes since you last saw it are in highlight yellow. So one of the questions was the airport boundary definition, and I had a bunch of stuff in here. So I basically boiled it down to it's the perimeter of the property is defined by El Dorado County surveyors. We have their map that identifies the properties assigned to the airport, and that defines the airport property perimeter or boundary. I had some other mumbo jumbo in there, and it's hard to put in words because we don't have 100% perimeter fence in all areas. For example, in front of Chuck Wall building, there's no fence, so the boundary is soft. The fences along Boeing are displaced 50 feet from the real perimeter, so it's really hard to put this into words to clarify those sort of things. So it's basically, you look at the map and you can see the perimeter. I can bring the map up if anybody needs to see it. The other part I did is in general operating rules, made clear that these rules apply only to people within the boundary of the airport, not residential side, because this talks later on about vehicle use, rights of way, and that sort of thing. We do not have that nailed down as far as what goes on the residential side. So this is strictly airport side rules. None of this other stuff was changed. It's a combination of existing stuff. Noise abatement repeats what's existing, but I added some statements about non-standard approaches and other exhibitions. Generally, we get noise complaints during and right after those things, and I think it just sets us up for Too much of that causes a lot of problems. So if you feel obligated to do a cruise speed flyby at 6 feet over the runway before you do your circling the approach and dive into the end of the runway, you know, people notice that stuff and it's not beneficial to us. So we can't say no, but we can say try not to. A previous meeting, there's a question about the starting and maneuvering of aircraft because it was too restrictive. So we've extracted this one from another airport. Basically, it opens up, people can operate an aircraft if they're qualified, such as a pilot, A&P, qualified technician, and that sort of thing. So it opens it up to A&Ps can taxi airplanes, and it isn't restricted just to certified pilots. I think that's pretty much it as far as any changes since the last time we went through this. Oh, it talks about here if people do not follow the rules for vehicle, pedestrian, and other type uses, they can be denied permission for airport access except by their aircraft. So if somebody, you know, wants to go drag race up the runway in their car, we can deny them their gate passes and that thing to get there, but we won't exclude the use of it by their aircraft, because it's a kind of a different breed of cat. So a lot of these restrictions are based on vehicle use within the airport boundary and for safety. So that's pretty much it. The rest of it is the same. Again, it's a homogenation of a bunch of separated documents, puts it all in one place, has recommended approaches, recommended procedures to use in flying the pattern around here. None of this is new. It's all been around. It just wasn't in one place. It also explains how to turn PLASI on, how to turn runway lights on, and that sort of thing. So open for comments.
I know we went through this in great detail last time this was, you know, brought up, and it resulted in the changes that you identified in there. I think this is a pretty comprehensive document. So I don't have any comments to the document itself. I think it looks real good. I would say, I think we talked about it a little bit before, it'd be good, particularly the flight school or somebody to do kind of a seminar, a session on operating at Cameron Park Airport using this document as kind of the basis.
Sounds good.
No.
Mhm. All right. Anything else on, well, I've got the document. Okay. All right, I do have a resolution. I can bring it up, or we can simply, well, yeah, let me see if I can find it.
Earl, on the document, can you show, there was a note there about aircraft wingspan. Can you pull that up again for a second?
Yeah, it's 49 feet or 15 meters. Let me get it back.
Because 15 meters is a little bit in excess of 49 feet, so.
Yeah, it kind of cheats, but there's somebody that has a powered glider that's 15 meters, so that's why we did it that way.
Yeah.
Where is it? I think it's up here. Here it is, weight and wingspan restrictions. The FAA says 49 feet, but 15 meters is only slightly more than that.
Right.
And they basically jump a category of airport to go to 15 meters, but I think we can give it some leeway.
Okay.
Because the 12,549 feet's in the FAA designation for class 2, and then they say you have to go to a different class to actually squeeze it to 15 meters, but I think we can call it good enough.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a good document. Just needs to be known.
And I have if I can find it. like my resolution is missing MIA, but I can pull it up. Let me find it.
I believe that resolution was just for this document to formally adopt it, right?
Yeah, I found it. I'll bring it up. So the resolution that we're doing these documents by resolution because they establish policy and procedure versus a motion. And so this resolution is the same as the prior document ones, except it's a singular document. Reviews and adopts document, policies and procedure, takes effect immediately, and it'll be available on demand to anybody as a PDF. And it's just this 2.1 CPAD rules and regulations. So
A question, maybe more for Kevin from the operations side. By adopting this and become effective immediately, is there any impact? Anything going on at the airport? I can't imagine, but
Not that the sheriff of the airport would
okay.
go out and enforce right away. No, it's good to have these though. Just quite literally, having the the rules and regs for the airport are really what have to be in place to enforce anything against a misbehaving pilot or visitor. So without that, it makes it really difficult to even step off the the first rung to do something to remedy the situation. So it's good to have them. Very good to have them.
yeah, and the concern I have primarily is because of the residential access, we're pretty casual about who drives on and off airport, and you wouldn't do that at most regular airports, but it tends to get sloppy here. So we want to have something in play in case there is an incident between a vehicle and an aircraft on the runway or something bad like that occurs. We'll at least have established that somebody did something naughty per our rules and regulations. Because right now we have nothing that would support that we had any say in it. So that's kind of what Kevin was saying.
Should we highlight this on the website? Say this with this passing that.
Yeah, we can post it up there and make it as a separate document and figure out how to distribute. We could also PDF it and send it out to a bunch of people too to freshen them up.
I think that'd be great.
All right.
Lost in the ether, kind of.
So I guess we're here to vote on the resolution, and we'll see about making it more popular. So
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the resolution and the
okay,
document as presented.
all right, I would agree with that. So I would say aye.
Aye.
It's like we have 3 ayes, no noes, no abstains, and 2 absent. So I'll fill this out, sign it, and then I'll catch up with the secretary and get it signed and stamped into the system.
And thank you, Burl, for taking the lead on this and spending a lot of time and work on this.
Yeah, I think we're about done. We have some other things to talk about before we generate the next document that completes a big batch of documents. I do owe everybody a index that's reusable, which we'll work on now that we have a pack of these documents there. Okay, so the next issue is that, as I mentioned earlier, we're under contract for trees. That basically puts us at our annual budget for trees, and we're asking for $5K additional to finish the priority trees and obstruction mitigation. I think there's some off-airport trees we're going to have to help them finance, and I think this is ample for that from what I understand, but Kevin can weigh in on that one because he's been negotiating with them.
Yeah, I believe it'll be sufficient for what has yet to be done.
And again, the bulk of the trees remaining are the BLM, but we think we can do those with CAL FIRE and volunteer type stuff, so we don't need to go with the contract type system.
Well, this is on the properties, Kevin, that were identified that we may have to contribute. In order to get them cut?
Yeah, we have one redwood to the north, which will be into for a little under $500 to get that one completed. And then there are the redwoods in the Cook Senior Yard that will give a little assistance there on. But the two question marks are the two private residents that are up on the south ridge. And those trees happen to be on or very near the BLM property line. So I believe that we'll be able to fall those into the public lands and be able to take care of it that way with the help. So there might be several $100s involved in that process. So yeah, it should be well within what Burl is suggesting here.
So the reason it's $5,000 is, it sounds like it very adequately covers what you described. But it sounds
That's
like-
what I'm hoping for, yes.
And these are, of course, needed to complete the list before we go back to Caltrans.
That's right.
It may be too much. I mean, it's ample. We may, but again, if we got to pay to assist in trimming those two trees and they don't go public, then 5K is about what it's been costing us. So that's why I put it 5K. It may be substantially less if we get lucky.
They're big trees. They're big trees. So I wouldn't want to go too short. I'd rather move the money back after the fact if we don't use it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's a good point, Kevin. If we get through this and get those streams set, the balance, the unspent balance could be moved back to wherever, or do we need to, or should we hold it? Because trees are going to grow. We're going to need to keep doing it, of course.
Well, I think it'll hinge on the outcome of the next inspection, how much trouble we're in.
Next question is, where does the money come from?
Yeah, I'm going to pull that up next. I wanted to cover the budget altogether, so I think we can do it in pieces. Let me give you a preview of what we're proposing for the budget overall, and then you can see how that looks. Give me a minute to get it back up here. All right, so this is you should be seeing the profit loss budget overview thing at this point.
Okay.
And the bottom moves, the top doesn't. So let me go all the way up. Basically, we're saying this is the left-hand column is our currently approved 2021 budget. The middle column, or the right column, is the proposed 2021 budget with our new information. And then on the right are comments and proposed reductions, additions, and reasons. So income doesn't change. Again, the savior, if we get it, is we'll have an additional 30K of CARES money. We're not guaranteeing that yet, although it's getting more and more likely, but I don't want to put it in here until we really have it. That's what I'm saying. So, but I personally am happy to go a little tight, knowing that keeps getting closer. Anyway, so our income doesn't change. On the left, you see the red squares. The red squares are basically fixed costs that we don't have a lot of flexibility with unless a major function goes away. So the first one's internet access. If we give up our current internet system, yeah, we could save $500, but that's a big hit for that. So the first item we're trimming from what was budgeted is computer expense. We were planning to try to get a mini server to put all these documents and stuff on. We're going to walk away from that. So this is a cushion for computer peripherals and computer failure that may occur. So we've gained $500 by dropping that one. Office supplies, this includes, I think, bathroom supplies, etc. We've dropped $500, so we're just gonna have to watch it. You know, we don't expect doing a lot of mass paperwork. We generate a lot of paper when we do mass mailings and stuff for the district, so we're just not going to do that at this point. So another 500 gain from that. Repairs and maintenance is generally everywhere. This one's the highest risk cut, and it probably exposes us to, if something breaks, it may stay broken until we can refund ourselves. So that's the exposure by cutting it to this amount. But I think we did a lot of repairs. There's no indications of anything particularly going south. So it's a matter of how lucky do you feel. But I think we can squeeze this much out of it and still survive as long as we're extremely.
How's that, the hangar doors that were mentioned earlier?
Yep.
Is this impacted by that at all? I mean,
No, this wouldn't have been budgeted to do anything with hangar doors anyway.
that's a separate line item?
Separate item, and we're gonna go for basically looking for some CIP money or something else to try to fund those down the road. Meaning they work. There's some repairs that should be done on these swing doors. Are not imminently hazardous right now, but we don't have the money now for it. So what this covers is, say, lighting maintenance. We have plenty of spares. I don't think we're exposed there. Equipment like a DR mower, etc., and that sort of thing. If one of those has a major failure, it may just get parked until we can fund to fix, that sort of thing, is what we're exposed to. Let's see, the other one in our favor, courtesy of Canood, he's been going through the general ledger, which are literally hundreds of items, and up until we revisited our account numbering system, things got scattered all over the place. And he's identified some double charging and double accumulations in some places for AWAS maintenance. So we think AWAS maintenance is more like $3,500 a year instead of $6,000 at this point. The $6,000 comes from some of the first year costs that were mixed in with maintenance, and it took him going back that far to extract those. So we've been moving along with prior year funding estimates, and we were wrong on this one. So he thinks 3,500 will take care of it. I think we spent 1,900 so far this year, and we only have one major effort left, I believe. So
we
makes
maybe
sense.
keep it longer.
So that picks 2,500 up that we didn't have. In our favor, clearing and tree service. This is the one we're proposing to add 5K to give us what we need to finish the priority trees, and it looks like a little bit of a cushion, but it may not be depending on which way those off airport trees go. We're cutting gate expense by 1,000. There had been some hope to add some gate, some fences along the culvert area. We've dropped that, so this is basically minor repairs, and hopefully that nobody will drive through a bunch of fence without having insurance, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, shouldn't that number be 1,500 to get them to add up?
Yeah, it should be. Good deal.
I'm sorry, just a clarification, the clearing and tree services, that's not the same budget we're trying to find money for, right? Oh, addition.
Yeah, we originally
I'm sorry.
budgeted 10K, and we'd like to bump it up to 15, which is still quite a bit less than last year, because we're finally catching up with the impact of what we got to cut. So instead of 100 and some trees to cut, we've got 40 or so this year to cut, something like that.
I was misreading it there for.
And then the other one that we're going to talk about shortly, but I'll mention it, is we want to have a bump up in mower operations by 5K to cover equipment needs. And that'll be a separate discussion we're going to have right after this one.
And that's a 1 year, one-time bump.
One-time deal. And like I say, next year's budgets will be looked at in a new vein. This is basically to survive this year till June. The other changes are we pulled 500 out of postage. We don't mail much stuff anymore other than the routine stuff, so I think we'll back off on the estimate of how much that was going to be. So you won't get much from us in the mail. So that picks up 500. So anyway, those are the good things. Another bad one that has occurred is fuel system maintenance was underestimated by at least $1,000. So it is recommended that we bump it up to 3,500 to cover its actual cost. So AWAS was one way, fuel system was the other way. We're finally getting a handle on where all this stuff historically was charged to. So unfortunately, we've got some stuff to tweak. And so that one goes up basically 1,000 to cover fuel system maintenance. So in order to extract 10K, 5K for trees and 5K for mower, make the other adjustments, AWAS down, fuel system up, we strip the budgets in orange that I've talked about, and then we have to tap $2,500 from the 9K airport reserve fund. So that'll leave $6,500 in an airport reserve fund that's kind of one way. It's basically being drawn down, but we don't have any money to add to it. And that will make us whole as far as the proposals for tonight. And hopefully, unless something else happens, carry us to June. And in going deficit, yeah.
You saying the reserve fund goes down to 6,500?
Yeah, it's 9,700 right now. So if my head calculations are right, we'd lose it to 6,500.
And that's where you mentioned that the CARES Act is looking much more promising.
CARES Act is looking promising. So what that would do would be, we have significant issues next year. We got to come up with 8 to 10K for an audit that we didn't have to budget for this year. We don't know where tree mitigation is going to need to go, but we assume it's not going to go down very much. You know, basically we're on the downside of a lot of these other issues. If something breaks, something falls apart, it goes the wrong way. So I think a lot of the CARES 30K would be to refresh the reserve fund and sit on it, basically. I don't think we're going to pre-spend it in any way.
Agree. So when you total that up, you add that column there, it should net zero. You're pulling money and the new money balances out.
Something like that, yeah.
Does that work out then?
Yeah. And again, I think that the highest risk item here is the reduction in the maintenance and repair by the 2,500, you know, because that's basically one issue will blow that. So from 7,500 to 2,500, but you know, it'll keep us alive until, in theory, CARES comes in and refreshes. So we basically have to go to a no spend, and if it breaks, it may stay broken mode until it's resolved.
Or we have some bake sales.
Yeah, bake sales or whatever. Find the buried gold under the end of the runway, you know. So that's our budget situation. So the highest risk I can see here is the strip repairs and maintenance. I'd rather do that and take a chance than go ahead and reduce the reserve fund any lower, just in principle. We've basically got most things in pretty good shape that we inherited. So, I don't know, who knows? And then these other things, we're backing off from like a server for files, and we're backing off some fence work, and we're cutting everything else basically to the bone to free this money up within our existing overall budget.
And our increase in fuel sales will help a little bit.
Increasing fuel sales are good because they will get us above this 2025 number of maybe. We're on pretty good track for better fuel sales, but again, things could go south. We don't have guarantees on any of this estimates, so that's kind of where it is. But there's two issues to think about for next year. One is we have not yet got the 10K grant income for this year, and it may not exist next year, totally out of our control, plus the need for the audit money. So we're kind of starting out next year in kind of a deep trench anyway. So hopefully we can CARES will carry us through next year and maybe the year after, depending on how much stuff breaks around here. So that's where we're at. Any questions on what I've done, said, proposed? We can do other stuff.
It sounds like, I just summarized, even with the CARES Act, we're just sustaining. There's no
No, there's no golden lining, no golden fleece coming out of it. So CARES Act will keep us alive is what it will do.
we are still a long ways from having money for matching funds.
Yeah, we don't have any matching funds. We don't have any capital improvement. We have no reserve to speak of. And I think we'll have to start talking about what stuff we don't support and start shutting it off if things continue to get worse. So not quite there yet, but that's kind of what we're faced with right now. So feel free, if there's any other things you see that we should be taking a chop at, we can, but I think I don't see anything else that we feel we can trim yet at this point. Means we're roughly mid-year, so we've got half a year to go. And like Kevin said, if we get lucky on the trees, we won't spend the 5K. We'll put it back somewhere and put it where it's needed at the time.
I don't have any other comments. Sounds like your math checks that you've got, just all balances out.
Good, because Canute did it, so I was going to blame him.
Okay. Well, I don't have the ability to check myself, but
So that's where we are, and I think the budget information that would have carried over in the other is that AWAS we overestimated, and fuel repair we underestimated, and we get more back from AWAS than we're putting into fuel, so it's a net help. But it's just one of those things. We do the best we can with the data we have. So as we refine this cost accounting system, we'll do better as far as estimating the actual cost. All right. So
I think it's a good plan. You got to get these trees taken care of.
well, I think our continued priority is to get night ops back. Again, I will reiterate our goals in the annual report that I owe you guys, and we'll probably do a draft in January and review goals for next year as part of that report, so we can agree on where we're gonna put our efforts into. So that's basically it for these items. The other thing is to review the working group's mowing requirements and proposal. What's going on there is, I think Terry will carry the ball on this, but we've, the last 4 or 5 years, relied on ancient broken equipment, donations, borrowed equipment, the generosity of residents to rent and use equipment. And all of those options are basically run to the ground. So we're right now have a powered grass type mower that we have nothing to pull it with. We don't have the ability to cut the weeds that have grown as high as they've grown. And so we're kind of stuck as far as equipment issues. There's a lot of input has been given there one way or the other about what to do about it. So basically what we've decided to do is go to this so-called mower selection group, which is actually the people that have been actively out there mowing the last couple of years, to come up with their proposal and their plan and still fit within our 5K budget goal. So I think that's what they've done for us. And so it's a two-part question. One is, do we accept the direction they're going, and is that what we want to do about mowing? Is that the best solution? And then the 5K is the budget part that we kind of reviewed quickly in just a few minutes ago. So this is in two parts. So there's the tree trimming budget. The first motion is whether we want to go ahead and bump the tree budget up 5K with the changes made and the additional things. So I think we should vote on that first, and then look at mower as a second issue. So if we don't need the 10K for whatever reason, then we'll just remanipulate the budget, just take 5K out. So what that would mean is we don't tap the reserve fund and we put 2,500 back in equipment in the general maintenance fund is the difference. So
I don't have any further comments on the tree trimming. As presented, I agree. Think it makes sense, and we want to get night lops back.
So okay.
I don't know if Glenn has any.
No comments from Glenn.
I gotta
Okay, so
make a motion to approve this as written.
Second motion.
okay, so I'll say aye on the 5K for tree mitigation.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we got that one, and then now we need to review the mower selection group and see what they've come up with. So I assume Terry is going to do that, right?
Right. I'm just present my charts to see if I have the ability to share. Can you send this
Yeah,
hearing over?
You should have. I just turned it on.
Okay. Set my charts here. Let me get this in presentation mode. I'm going to, for the benefit, I'm going to go through this rather quickly. It's a set of charts, some information here, which it wasn't intended necessarily to go into detail to, but wanted to show you the, at least the summary level of the depth that we've gone to, and as well as the process here in the last month or so on this. So again, this is the tree budget. I'm sorry, the mowing. The need, I think as Burl said, we need to resolve the mowing issue like now. We've got some mowing opportunities. The grass and weeds are growing. We have an opportunity to cut those. We need to mow to reduce the fire hazards and risk and keep the airport, of course, looking good. But we also need long-term, low-cost solutions that meet our needs. Considering that we do this with pretty much all volunteers, not only for mowing, but to spray and trim and maintain equipment. We need to keep it cut low to meet fire requirements, reduce the risk of the airport, airplanes, and residents. I'm thinking here in terms of grass fires that could suddenly start. Cal Fire wants the weeds cut down very low to mitigate that. For as far as a long-term solution here, need flexibility to take advantage of relatively dry times to mow during the spring and early summer. By dry times, I mean when it gets dry enough, we get to saturating rains, it gets pretty mucky out there. In some areas of the airport, but we're at a point where it dries enough, drains off enough that you could go ahead and do mowing and get some of that work done in the spring and the early summer. Summertime, we can only mow up to a point it becomes fire season. It's just too risky causing sparks and setting fires. The existing Swisher mower, which is a rotary mower, it does work well. But as Burrow mentioned, it requires a capable tow vehicle and many man hours due to the relatively narrow 4-foot width of this. And by the time you look at overlap in this, when you figure out the time to cut, the effective cutting length is about 3 feet. And it's mentioned we currently don't have or have use of a capable tow vehicle. So we have it sitting there and nothing to tow it with. In that, there's opportunities. The budget request for tonight is budget allocation, much like we just did with the trees. This is not a motion to approve a purchase at this time. That will be a separate motion once specific equipment is identified and the price agreed to. So as far as the mowing, it's in 2 parts. First part tonight, approve the budget allocation. It's kind of like being pre-approved to go look at houses. That's kind of where we're at. So we know as a working group what is available to meet the requirements. And the second part is to, of course, approve the purchase of specific equipment. The mission, in trying to work through and define this, put some structure behind it, start with this, what's our mission is mowing. Some of this statement is obvious, but you always learn some things when you start kind of diving into the next level. We want to keep the airport grounds cut and trimmed to mitigate the fire risk, as we, as previously mentioned. Also, if an airplane runs off the runway, better to have the shorter low grass. And of course, keep our airport looking good and kept up.
It's also, let me jump in real quick. It's also a Caltrans requirement. And in fact, that was one of the major heartburns when they did the first inspection here, is that the weeds were too high and things had not been trimmed up. So they also look at it as an issue of safety, aircraft safety, and a requirement to keep it trimmed. So it's all part of our keep it operating problem also.
And keep it operating safely. So how we do this when we say we're mowing the airport, it's really a combination of mowing with the pull behind mower, walk behind the DR trimmers and some hand trimmers, and weed spraying. Those 3 really areas of what it keeps to take the airport to meet our requirements. Who does it? It's our resident airport volunteers and the airport manager. We have a dedicated group of volunteers that works very hard to keep this up. Not only to run the mowers when we had vehicles, but to do the spraying and the walk behind trimmers. I know I've done it, walking in mucklucks through the weeds and trimming the weeds down. It's a little experience. By the way, is Dave Becker on the phone?
Dave's here. His iPad mini's here. Yeah.
Okay, Dave.
I'm here.
Dave, please chime in. Add any comments.
Okay.
So when looking at the area to mow, this is an estimate, and I found there may be, in terms of areas to mow, a little bit overestimating, because I included here some of the lines that are actually on some property. It's airport property, but some of the folks in Boeing take care of that. Total length of our airport, the airport area here is about 6,050 feet. Eyeballing this from Google, so if I call it an average of 325 feet, that means we have an overall area to take care of, which for purposes here, so rather simplistic, I'm referring to the mow area. This does include the ditches, which we can't directly mow, and some other areas, but it's I think it's a pretty good estimate. That comes out to just over 40 acres of area. This is subtracting the area of the runway. So we have 40 areas of dirt, to more or less dirt and grass, to take care of. Again, a rough estimate. It's not intended to be precise. For those who aren't familiar, on the board and the public, these are the primary areas. This is the area to the north off the end of runway 13. Some of the area we might not quite be able to mow yet. It's just too rough. But other areas we can. Midfield, I think everybody's mostly familiar with that. This is the area down the bottom I a little bit overestimated, because the small sliver of land here is a few houses they had behind the fences to agreements a long time ago. That is actually airport land that we don't routinely mow. Then the mowing area to the south, I can see I've included the area up to Oxford, because thanks to Dave Becker, we're expecting to get that area cleared of rocks and other things, and obstacles that would prevent us from doing a normal mowing. So I'm assuming once that area is cleared, we can run the mower up there to keep that area trim. I think we've all seen how tall the weeds there can get sometimes. It's difficult to clear, excuse me, because of the rocks and other obstacles. So look at mowing times, assuming that area 40 acres and some various assumptions you can see on the side. What it comes down to is we look at different mower widths and the time it takes to mow. Currently, we've had the 4-foot Swisher mower. These numbers here are probably on the high side because I say it's including the ditches and stuff. I didn't refine those out of here, but just assuming that in there, we're about with the mower at 4 feet, we're about 32 man hours. You know, that's about 111 miles. I don't think we quite go that far. But what the working group looked at is we go bigger in mower widths, the reduction in mowing time, you know, compared to the 4-foot time. And you see with about a 6-foot wide mower, we get about 20 man or just over 19 man hours, which is about a 40% reduction. You go 7 foot, it's about half time. This mowing time is just straight mowing time. Doesn't include breaks or anything like that. But just to get a feel, it's not intended to be precise. So there's a lot of variables and a lot of considerations in looking at the type of mower. Put together what I've called the Airport Mower Selection Working Group, which is composed of the airport manager and the resident volunteers who have the experience. That is made up of Jeff Thornhill, Victor Garcia, and David Becker, and of course, Kevin. I took on to be able to chair the working group meeting, which we held on November 17th, and it was really very good. Started out with a list of requirements that I initially prepared. The group went through those, addressed them, tried to get that thinking of what we wanted to consider as a long-term solution. We looked at the requirements and what we kind of gave some weights. So we didn't weight all the requirements, but what the most important factors we wanted to consider driving us to a potential solution. I'm not going to do this, but the basic mission requirements, so we have an area to mow. We've got some flat areas. We assume the ditches, they did not require to be mowing there because of the difficulty doing this. Vehicles got spray rigs. Has to be able to tow the spray rig, which is not a big deal. Skill levels, we're doing it with airport residents and volunteers. At the time to mow, we kind of said no more than 2 days to complete. And that's to make sure we got an adequate supply of volunteers to do that. So we start getting 3 or 4 days to complete a mow, that gets rather difficult. Number of mowing events per year, based on the experience from the mowing group, it says we want to plan for 4 mowing events or mowing cycles per year. I mentioned before, the mowing seasons, we want to be able to take opportunities in February, March to get to grass, because we've all seen how rapidly things can grow here, and you can get behind real quickly in taking care of the airport, but the work just goes up. Costs, we've assumed a $5,000 cap on this. There's been a lot of talk about rent versus buying. There's some more material here about some of the analysis. Renting turns out is a very expensive option. So the requirements that we targeted was to have the renting cost no more than purchasing equipment. So here the simple math is below $5,000 to buy it. We're assuming roughly $200 a year to maintain it. Service life of about 10 years, so it's $7,000 over that. And so the rent, well, we wouldn't want to spend more than $700 per year. And assuming 4 mows, that's $175 per mow. The data shows you just can't get there by almost a magnitude. So the focus has been on buying equipment. Even if the rental equipment is available, that's also a big issue. Say renting, been a lot of work and researchers. Kevin has gathered a lot of data. The big thing here besides cost is the mowers generally are not available, difficult to find, and their availability long-term is not certain. The option that was looked at was to buy a mower, pull behind mower, rent a tractor, but tractor availability is uncertain. Rental costs does not include delivery and pickup. That makes it expensive. And the renters seem to be assuming the tractor is going to use things like excavating, scraping, not mowing. So they give other equipment, excavators and other things, which we'd have to take off, but that doesn't, probably not part of the deal. Bottom line here is based on the analysis and studies that Kevin put together here, we could be looking, if we buy some mower and to rent, you know, it's a $8,000 type year. Now, granted, the mower itself is a little more expensive here in this analysis, but you know, within 1 year, we exceed the budget we're talking about to purchase the equipment. So it's not a good long-term solution. But question came as, what does Placerville use, another El Dorado County airport? They do have a PTO, a power take-off driven brush hog that was given to them, but after the county deemed it was all, you know, it was end of life and used up. So they've been apparently nursing that along. They wanted to get something new, but the request was turned down by the county. And now they share that with Georgetown on a trailer, the 2 county airports. Key requirements is, I'm going to skip through this. Other than to say we go beyond the 4-foot wide mower to around the 6+ feet range, which would give us about that 20 man hours. The minimum tractor horsepower range that we found is about 30 to 65 horsepower. We don't have steep hills, so we think we can get the low end. Be able to mow when the ground is damp without making significant ruts drives us to wider tires, so you just don't sink in the ground. Again, what we're trying to be is cut low to be compliant with the fire break requirements. That's it. The rest, yeah, that's something we've talked about. Drive requirements, we do want to keep to make the service life. We do want to keep the equipment stored inside, keep it out of the sun so the rubber products don't break down prematurely. 6 foot wide, which pretty much drives us to a power takeoff driven mower, because the power requirements to drive all the mower, the blades. 2-wheel drive for the tractor is okay, minimum 30 horsepower. We do need to have rollover protection, which we think we can add that. And for driver comfort, shade cover and drink holders. So at the discussion with the working group as we went through the requirements, we believe this is all doable within that budget. The PTO, the mower would not have side shifting. We don't think that's necessary. That does drive up the cost. Dave Becker has to lead to find a mower that's kind of in that price range. The tractor, 2-wheel drive, 30 horsepower, good condition to last 10 years with maintenance. You know, the reasonable maintenance on it. Victor Garcia is lead to find used ones. He's done some research prior to this. Target less than $4,000. He believes that's achievable. And believe can build a storage shed, perhaps next to the lighting shed. We'd need to have that a permanent structure. Maybe we could use that for other things. Likely have to get permits and so forth. But we'll endeavor to store that. There's no budget for this yet, but just we feel we need to get this out of the sun. This is maybe more just for a general understanding, because I didn't know much about this until I started this. There's rotary mowers and flail. Rotary mowers, like I think the traditional lawnmower I used cutting the grass when I was growing up. Big rotary blades going around. This is just an example here. Flail is a horizontal shaft with these blades that spin around and kind of vertically and just kind of get very close to the ground. They're cut with knives. The rotary mowers don't tend to be maybe that sharp, but they can just go around in a circle and cut. Rotaries are good for large overgrown grassy areas. They can cut tall grass, can be run at relatively high speeds, but the cut is a lower quality cut. They have a potential for clumping, piling of chippings. They're relatively simple to maintain. It's just rotary flat blades. But they do have inherent characteristics that they can throw objects in all directions. A lot of them have chains to keep things contained. But because they're spinning, they can throw rocks, trash, etc. Flails are very good at cutting a heavy brush and vine. They're great for overgrown trees. They do mulch because these blades are going around and kind of recutting everything over. And they tend to spread the cuts very evenly. And because of the way they're linear cut, they have a lower risk of throwing debris, making it a little better for areas with rocks, and particularly have people who are close. The risk is not as great. They can also cut lower than the rotary, which allows us to get to the fire break requirements, and the blades are relatively simple. The working group has been doing the mowing, has had good experience with flail mowing the airport previously, and they've said that did the best cut job for the airport. Dedicated tow vehicle. We've taught everything we're talking here would have a dedicated tow vehicle, essentially a tractor versus a multi-use airport vehicle. This is now kind of going back to separate out those two, the needs for those two vehicles. In order to meet the mission requirements for cutting, we really need a separate higher power vehicle, a tractor. Obviously, this would not make a good or economical vehicle to run down to the ramp to check down on tie down to take a tractor. The smaller width, when the smaller width motor is used, could be towed by an ATV type vehicle. However, during the mowing, the vehicle would not be available for the quick trips or the urgency of getting down someplace because it'd be tied up mowing. And this may be a little bit of stretch on, but these vehicles are not necessarily meant to pull these heavy loads for long, many hours and miles. Likely would reduce the drivetrain life and add to the downtime for maintenance and repairs. The conclusion in this is the mower selection working group believes they can locate a mower and tractor that meets the requirements. They have the combination of tools within $5,000 and within the specified annual maintenance costs. Well, not as certainly as idea as a new mower or tractor or a very new one. They believe it's the best solution given our budget situation. And the mower selection working group is currently looking for a mower and tractor. So again, tonight's request for the board is to approve the allocation of the $5,000 budget. The actual decision to spend that money is a separate motion. Dave, as you are a member of the working group, do you have any comments?
The only comment I will make is that I think we should recast the motion to authorize the expenditure of up to $5,000, because I was out yesterday and almost bought a flail mower. These are the kinds of things that it's cash on the barrelhead and someone's coming in another couple hours to look at it and might buy it. There's no way we have the ability to identify a used piece of gear and ask the seller to stop trying to sell it until our next board meeting. So my request is that if the board's pleasure is to go this route, that they authorize the expenditure of up to $5,000. That way we don't have to come back, show them a picture of something that may have already been sold. If it were new equipment, certainly we could do that, but used equipment, cash talks, and I was an inch away from buying a flail mower yesterday. So I wouldn't buy a piece of gear under the present bifurcation where we approve the concept and then later approve the expenditure. I would be stuck, and whatever I found in the month of December as a potential candidate would certainly not be around in January at a board meeting to approve the purchase.
Dave, do you think even if with that experience, if we had you found something and we're able to call a special board meeting?
The impracticality of it is I'm going to go out there to some farmer. Yesterday I went all the way out to Carbondale Road in Amador County. These things are not easy to find. I take a picture of it and I come back, hold a special board meeting, show you a picture of it. And the board members decide if that's the one they want to buy. That really isn't the way buying used equipment works. You're out on the farmer's field. He's got it hooked up to his tractor. He's spinning the flail mower. You're checking it for balance, dings and dents, and listening to it run, watching it work. And you got to buy it. You got to buy it or you got to walk on it right then and there. So I don't think a special board meeting would be practical for this. And I'm sure Victor would say the same thing about the tractor. You know, he's out in Yuba City. He's driven 90 minutes to get there. He's got his because I even brought a trailer yesterday. He's got his trailer with him capable of hauling a 4,000-pound tractor. And he's going to tell the seller, the farmer with his suspenders, well, we're going to have a quick board meeting sometime in the next week and I'll get back to you. That's not the way it works.
How do you manage the total? They have a total budget of $5K between the tractor and mower.
Yesterday, I was going to pay out of my own pocket, the difference between the budget of 1,500 and what the guy wanted. He wanted 1,850 for the flail mower that I was almost going to buy. So I would have just donated the extra 350.
Very, very generous. But I was thinking of Victor, is coordinated with him, because we're looking at capping it at 5,000 maximum between the two.
He's aware of his budget limitation.
So does the proposal say that the flail is a max of 1,500 and the tractor is a max of 3,500?
The two have to combine to 5,000. Our maximum is 5,000 split between the two units.
Correct. And I think that's what Terry was kind of alluding to, is saying, how do you manage to that? I mean, I greatly appreciate you saying that, you'll donate if you're sticking to a budget of 1,500 for the flail, and then if it's above that, you're going to do a donation. But how do we control that?
Well, I think the way it works is sort of like Dave alluded to, is basically the district promises up to 5K. And if it goes over 5K, they may or may not get reimbursed. I think that's what they have to choose to do or not do.
Right, and if Victor finds a tractor for $4,750, he's going to call me and say, Dave, I just spent $4,750 on the tractor. That leaves me with $1,250 on the flail mower, or vice versa. But it's how we manage the allocation between flail mower and tractor is with a phone call.
The exposure that I see to the district is if you guys buy something that doesn't work or something, but we have that risk anyways, unless we go new, which we can't do. So I don't think that's a big risk. And I think as long as everybody understands that the district is gonna for sure cover up to 5K, at least to get you started, I think is appropriate. And then again, potentially if CARES comes through in a timely fashion and you guys find something that's over that, I think you can come back to us and appeal for reimbursement. And I think we would be more than happy to do that, but I can't guarantee it without the other budget money. So it's a way to get it going, I think.
We've studied this a lot. And I think the decision to purchase a specific piece of equipment have to put the trust in in Dave and Victor having the experience and knowing what is a good piece of equipment. I agree with you, Burl. I think even as presented at a board, what's the board going to evaluate some pictures and some verbal descriptions and say, no, I don't think it's reliable, or so.
Yeah, it's not.
There's always that risk.
I think the board has to deed the responsibility for an appropriate purchase to the mower group. And all our interested is setting the max that they can spend, at least that the board will guarantee at this time. But if it goes over, it goes over, and then we can consider that as a later date, assuming we have budget. I think we could say that we would cover it, but we can't guarantee it unless we get this other income.
We do have a need to get some equipment on the field to get things cut, like now.
Well, that was going to be my question too, is what's our alternative if we can't find what we want in a timely manner, whatever that might be. We're going to have to figure out how to mow in some event anyway.
With that discussion, it makes sense. It put the trust and responsibility, of course, in Dave and the group. I just came along as kind of a facilitator, helped to try to pull things forward and present it to the board. I think it's a good idea in our best interest to do that, to give them the authority to purchase.
Yeah.
When they see something that's good in their wisdom and requirement that is good and works for us, they have that ability to immediately purchase it.
Yeah, I agree with Dave. You know, and for me, being a former farmer's son and grandson, yeah, once somebody reaches my number, it's gone. So
Sure.
I would, if the board is okay, I would agree with allowing them to have that pre-purchase approval ahead of time, up to the 5,000.
Yeah, I think the difference here, when we originally met on the 17th, and we hadn't gone out and directly looked at anything then, and I guess I gained his appreciation for the need to react quickly.
Yeah.
Glenn, any comments?
Just that I think we need, yeah, I agree. We need to give the authority to make a purchase, because I've purchased enough stuff used that when you come across it, you know, when you come across something, it's going to go quick if it's worth getting, usually, if it's at the right price. So I think we need to have the maneuverability in there to do it.
And I think the risk level is kind of somewhat, the risk level is the same whether it goes to a board approval. Actually, it can be greater with board approval just because of the timing, because it reduces the good stuff out there for a given price is going to go much quicker than bad stuff at the same price.
Well, something like this sound. Motion to approve proposed budget changes to authorize mower selection group to procure equipment with CPAD funding 25K, something like that. So if you want to spend 25K, that's fine. CPAD will pay 5.
And say up to 5K.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure this is the language.
Does that sound okay, Dave? Does that make sense from your perspective?
That works for us.
All right. So you guys are authorized to go buy what you need to buy. CPAD will pay up to 5K. And then, like I said, between us girls, we'll figure out if it has to go over or not. We can look at that as a secondary motion later on.
Understood.
And of course, if you do purchase stuff, is to inform us. You
Of
Kevin.
course.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it makes sense. We've studied this a lot. There's a lot of material. I think the selections and the discussed, and particularly as I did further research on myself, it makes sense.
Well, my thoughts on the whole thing in general, and why I asked Terry to do this approach, is I think the people that are out there actually putting in the labor and the time and executing the work should get what they want. And so that's who's driving the choices they make. And then we currently, because we're funding limited, we can at least do 5K towards that goal, and hopefully we can make it good if it has to go over that. I think that's my spiel from where I sit. And it's certainly a great effort. And I think Terry's kind of established a systematic approach to making these kind of choices that we should consider as our new standard way of doing things versus typically the way it's been done.
And going through the requirements, it drove out the need to have cup holders too.
Yeah, well, you need a good one on a tractor so it doesn't spill. You need one of them flexi ones. So anyway, so the motion has been adjusted to approve the budget changes that I went through earlier, and then to authorize the mower selection group to procure equipment with CPAD funding up to 5K of the amount or something like that. So I make that. Mm-hmm. So
Does that make the motion to approve?
all right.
As written.
Second
As
motion.
written. Okay, so I'm okay with that. I'm an aye.
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 Yeah, I
Okay,
think
guys.
I think this is a good thing. We can be so cautious about this that we're not successful.
Yep. And like I say, we'll try to help you guys financially after the fact, especially dependent on CARES. As long as I think it's reasonable. I think you guys have the judgment to buy what you need. So carry on.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, let's do it. And then, don't forget the switcher. You can pull it with a tractor or we can use it. It's not a bad machine. It
Yeah.
just, once the weeds get too high, it's not as happy as it could be. All right. Good. Only two more things. So there's a proposal. We typically do this, but I think we have to do it as a motion to not have a meeting in December. So I make the motion to not meet as a board in December.
Second?
And then Terry, you on board with that?
Yes.
Yes, and yes. So unless we need a special meeting or something, we'll go with that. But in the meantime, we won't plan to have the regularly scheduled board meeting in December, which has been kind of the standard practice. Okay. And then the last thing, because of the timing, I have a list of proposed projects for this capital equipment submission. Let me get it up. So what this is, a capital equipment program plan, is a project list that we submit to Caltrans through their system for their purposes of generating their total budget for all the airports in California. So what this is somewhat of a placeholder, proposed projects with out years to fund them. And then it's predicated that the airport has to generate all of the stuff to get approved for the grants, et cetera, et cetera. What Caltrans does with this is generates a requested amount, which they never get, and it's used to hammer the state of California for funding Caltrans operations and Caltrans capital improvement project system. And so the point from where we sit of a lottery, if we have a very low percentage of actually seeing this money, but if we don't buy a ticket or play the game, then we have no chance. So, and it also kind of puts a pattern of our situation out in the public eye where they can see what our needs are as we see them and work forward from there. The possibility exists of some of these smaller items getting funded near the end of their fiscal year if by some chance they happen to have any surplus. And so we've tried to come up with a couple of projects on the smaller size that we could basically fund through a quick procurement without having to generate a lot of engineering for it. So what I did is took the former list that's developed by me in like 2 hours when I inherited this job 2 years. And since then, we have revisited projects from the Infrastructure Finance Committee, and we've published some recommendations through a bulletin 4 for Measure P. So I've taken these and some additional inputs and created a new list with some realities of what we need first. So the top item on here is airport layout plan, 180K, big number. What that is FAA and Caltrans looks for in a FAA approved airport layout plan, which basically is a precise resurvey of the existing airport with layers of all of the modifications and changes proposed at that airport in a drawing set. The plan we have is dated year 2000 and it does not meet the requirements, and it has some interesting data on it that I don't think we could support. So in order to make a new one, they basically have to survey the entire airport and most of the area within a mile of the airport in order to pick up obstruction problems, which would pick up the trees and the buildings and all this stuff that's all out there. A lot of data gathering associated with each of those structures, each of the details, on and on and on. So we've been quoted anywhere from 100 to 180,000 is what these typically cost, reinforced by what they seem to cost in the world. Now, what our responsibility would be in this is somewhere between 5 and 10% of this cost. The rest would be picked up by grants. In order to initiate this, we would need some 10 to 20K of seed money in order to write a RFQ for it and then go out to bid with various firms that are capable of doing this to FAA standards. And then once awarded to one of those firms, then the firm would go after the grants, and that such as a package deal. But it's first on here, it's big dollars. We don't know how we at this point would initiate it necessarily, but I think it's a key item to seek grant money for almost any of these other projects that goes on from there. So that's why it's first. And it's proposed for next year, 2021. Again, a lot of these are simply placeholders and data points that we may or may not have to support. The one thing we want to get right is the total cost. We don't want to underdo it, because if they happen to award it, then we still got to meet that cost. I threw in the credit card point of sale upgrade, 15K. That's a capital improvement project. As of April, the banks will no longer recognize our credit card reader as being viable for security, et cetera. It won't read the chip embedded cards. And so between 12 and 15K is necessary to buy the equipment that will interface with the fueling system, because there's more to it than just a credit card reader. It also has to interface with the pumps and all that stuff. So that's might be a little project we might get some low-hanging fruit of if we get it. The next high project that we've been talking about is the fueling system. These underground tanks are a liability that is going to blow up someday, so to speak. So I did 3 chunks, starting with the engineering for it. Then the following year we would buy and install it, and then a couple of years out we would actually dig and remove the underground tanks. Some scenario like that. I've tried to fan the costs out in order to make it easier for us to come up with the matching funds we're going to need, and also perhaps get their attention in that we don't need $1 million. We only need, X dollars leading into some things or another. Fence and gate, that's basically add fence where we don't have it, go through the entire fence system and repair it, add a midfield gate for the transient parking area. Geez, midfield. Sorry about the crummy, I'll figure it out. I'll get there someday. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
Replace the existing powered gates with new operators and new controls for those. And we're thinking down the road, we'd integrate all of the controls to like a cell phone based system, so we wouldn't have to have cards and clickers and all that crap. And it does a lot of other things. So that's all lumped into this big dollar amount. As Kevin mentioned earlier, we've got some hangar doors that are going to fall apart, and we need to repair or maintain them, but they can't do that here. So I think if we put a project together to replace them, we could probably get bids fairly quickly and put that in as a project to replace them. That's an improvement. We're going to time out pretty soon on the slurry seal that was done on the runway, and we need to add the taxiway and apron tie downs. Plazy replacement. We'd like to replace the Plazy with LED PAPI on both runways. This is a quote we got from an engineering company. AWAS upgrade. It's kind of down the list, but what this would do would upgrade AWAS to Cat 3, so it includes ceiling and visibility. Every consultant we've talked to says they would relocate it, so the number is big because it includes a relocation of the tower. The culvert that runs under the runway, meaning the large drain pipe, was constructed too narrow, so we actually have a special exemption in our operating permit to allow us to fly because the entrance to that culvert where the drop off is too close to the runway. So this expands that culvert so that it meets the width restriction requirement for the FAA, and also opens up the possibility of a future runway width increase. It would have to be done as part of their width increase anyway. And then the drainage improvements east and west are basically the trenches parallel to the runway on both sides. We would do one side and then the other side. They would be basically a drain piping would be put in them with flush catch basins, and that ditch would be filled in so it's flush all the way to the outside of the airport perimeter. And then down a ways, a few years down, we're actually resurfacing. This is like what we're done to the streets. They grind up the top and lay down a new top layer of asphalt and go from there. So, and I just fanned them out arbitrarily. If anybody has something they want to put in here from the old list or change the order, feel free. This pretty much goes into a master book that Caltrans puts together. The reason I'm bringing it up now is the data entry is required to be finished by the end of January. So we'll be working on that over the break before the January meeting. So basically, all I'm asking is, does this list look about right? And we'll go ahead and get it into their system. It doesn't obligate us to anything particularly, but like I said before, if we don't buy a ticket, we never get to play. So that's kind of what it does for us.
Now here we don't even have to buy a ticket, but we have to submit it in order to play.
Yeah, I'm using that as an analogy, but
Sure.
yeah, we have to submit it, and they get excited if we don't, because they add all these numbers up and throw it at California to try to get their budget kicked up. So they like us to participate. So it's a friendly, it helps Caltrans relationships.
Did we have anything? I think the list here is very good, very comprehensive. It hits some very important points here. But did we ever have anything in the past, as I don't recall, whether we talked, about having the solar panels above the tie down areas? Whether maybe that was a
We
separate.
talked about it, and I think that's far out. I think we could consider that. That was a hope for us. That was tied in the last list. We included purchasing the partials that are where the storage unit's going now at the prices they were recently at that time just purchased at, and then putting solar on top of them and then covering the whole tie down thing. So I took all that out. We can put something back in, but I don't have any actual prices for colored covered parking with solar panels, but I could stick something in there.
I just wondered also, I mean, that's long term we talked about doing, but would that catch anybody's attention to Caltrans and kind of elevate?
My guess is no, not really.
Take care of the, resurfacing or the improvements of the tie down areas.
Probably not. But we could put it in there if you want to put it in there. What I did before, I don't know the cost of it, so I put an engineering evaluation one in there.
Oh, there it is.
And I can stick.
Yeah,
And that's in the old list. I can put it up in the new one if you want.
Yeah, I'd be interested. Yeah, I'd recommend we put it up there for the engineering,
All right.
because that can help potentially drive our, what we do with just the resurfacing by, putting in, wire conduits and foundations or something like that.
Done deal. I'll update the year. I'll update it. Yeah, and we were actually saying covered aircraft parking.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Burl, I'd offer up that one of the, some form of a retaining wall around the tie down areas. You've probably seen there's some erosion going on there that's only going to get worse. So that might be a quickly assembled shovel ready project to have one of those boulder style walls built there to protect that.
Yeah, I think you'd need an engine. It's over 3 feet high, right?
Oh yeah.
Then you're going to need a full engineering analysis and all that stuff on it. But yeah, we can figure it out.
It could be, because that's relatively a shovel-ready project with a retaining wall is kind of standard.
Yeah, we still have to have drawings and permits and all that crap generated somehow, so there'd be a little bit of front end stuff, but yeah, that's fine. Let's put it in here.
It's while you're typing there, just a side comment on the culvert. I think that was one of the items that was maybe misunderstood when the Measure P information was going around, you know, why the tunnel or whatever it was referred to. But if you look at the caveats on the back of, here's our state permit for the airport. On the back, the exceptions are listed on here. And one of the items is that Cameron Park does not have a standard width runway. And when you go before the FAA with a grant application, they look at, you know, in scoring who's going to get some money, what types of projects are you asking to work on? And if your project is focused on trying to get your airport up to standard as opposed to putting in a new electric gate or some of these other important ones, but you still have a substandard airport environment, that's one of the things that they're going to look at and say, you're, you know, not only is your runway narrow by 10 feet, but you have these obstructions, which are the white culvert fences that are there as well. So that one, it's not so much a nice to have as we look at money for these bigger longevity projects. That one can't be discounted in an unthoughtful way. It really does have a place ultimately in your scorecard, how your application for that airport is received.
Yep, yep. Because on here, I didn't put widen the runway or any of that stuff because I don't think we can generate matching funds to achieve this list even. So I didn't want to get too unrealistic, out too close to the reality of the situation. So, yeah. And again, this will be revisited in 2 years and doesn't automatically carry over. So they basically wipe out whatever's there and create a new list every 2 years, even though it's a 10-year lookout. So
I think if the airport's telegraphing that fixing that culvert, the pit of water as a phase one enables an eventual widening of the airport and, you know, maybe the upgrading of the lights to LEDs and that sort of thing in due course.
in due course, yeah, yeah. But as Kevin mentioned, there's a lot of criteria that we would have to figure out how to get exceptions for or move forward on before FAA is going to significantly invest in this airport. And the through the fence is one of the major issues. The other is the arrangement of the airport, the obstructed approaches, the intrusion within the airport safe zones of properties that the county's approved. I mean, we got a long list of things that they would roll their eyes at, and we would have to figure out how to get exceptions for or deal with in order to get significant FAA money. So it doesn't hurt to keep working towards that way, but I wouldn't hold out high hope that they're suddenly going to grant us $1 million to fix things up. You know, it's just the reality of the situation. Caltrans is another case. I think Caltrans is much more amenable, and all of our grants that we've gotten so far have come out of Caltrans with one exception. And I think they're who we're talking to here more than FAA, but that's just my opinion. It's an area that's ripe for much more work on our part and development of the whole process. Once we get out of the alligator mess we're in with night ops and all that other stuff, then we'll have time to play with this. Anything else? Anything else from anybody else about, you know, okay. I may need some help on some of these. I'm not sure what the data entry looks like yet, but we'll give it a shot. All right. And then
So is, so bro, I'm sorry, you're going to clean that up and then submit, we need to, when's the submittal due?
January 31st. And I have to basically fill out, I have to go into their system and enter a data sheet on each project, then it rolls up into their system for actually generating the list. So the idea was to accept the titles and the TPC and the priority orders tonight, and then I'll start entering the data for them tomorrow, basically, and see how far we get.
I think you showed there what we've added, it's just updated those cost numbers. I mean, given what this is used for. I think this is good.
I think it's close enough, you know.
So unless there's other, one has comments, but I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and approve this as discussed.
Sounds good. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll go yes for that one.
Okay. And I vote yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, but that's what it's for. It's not really going to have a significant immediate impact, but it's part of the overall process to generate this stuff. And eventually what we're supposed to have, which we don't, is a 10-year capital plan and all that sort of thing, which would be this would be the output of that. We kind of have bits and pieces of it, but there's a lot of work to be done on that. So someday.
Someday it seems ultimately it could feed into, we got airport layout plan, but get much more scrutiny.
Yes, yeah. All righty then. So unless there's any other comments from anybody, thank you, everybody. Good turnout tonight, and good work, everybody. So we will rework the budget to fit the proposed changes, and I'll get it to Canute, and he will enter it into the system through the bookkeeper, and we'll go from there on the rest of the stuff. So I suggest we adjourn at 9:03, if that's good with everybody.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Yeah, Earl and Terry,
All right,
you put a lot of effort. You put a lot of effort in all this. Thank